Well, hello again. This is Mike Siver for the Mike Siver Show. And my guest is Earnest again, my friend and guest, Earnest Spencer. Tonight we're going to talk about environmental awareness, which in itself doesn't say a lot, but when we get through this show today, I hope we can offer some suggestions and bring to light some of the issues that go on in the neighborhoods. And this is a story. I'm going to start reading it. It says this: you are sitting on your front porch and you watch a cougar go by, slowly, as if it were on the prowl. You watch it go into the distance, stop, and then turn around and face your direction. Inch by inch it starts towards you, picking up speed with every inch until it draws in front of you. That's when the two of the three occupants open fire. Lucky for you, you were aware of your environment, having grown up with an acute sense of self-preservation. Hypervigilant. Your gut feeling was that something was not right, so by the time the car was just about in front of you, you were already off the porch and around the corner, running down. And this story came about because two friends of mine, one was an environmentalist and one was a counselor, and they were talking about being environmentally aware and how they're trying to get the young people to become environmentally aware. And if they learn how to protect the environment, it'll be better for the green grass. You know the story that goes around today, it's going around. But then we got talking about the clients that I work with were young people, inner city kids. Mm-hmm. This was in Orlando, Florida. Right. Inner city kids, and I said, they are more environmentally aware than you will ever be. Mm-hmm. And they know their environment. They know where every car's parked. They know where every garbage can is. They know where everything is going. And if something's out of place, they're going to know it. Right. And they grew up like that. And they're even taught that you need to protect yourself. Mm-hmm. You need to be careful out there. And one of the students, while at school, one of the young boys while at school, was getting the teacher was talking about animals, the animal kingdom. How when the young lions, or any animals for that matter, are born, they stay together for protection. Mm-hmm. And mom stays with them for protection, right. Or dad. Somebody's always looking over them. Right. And they know if they run off on their own and be by themselves, they're in danger and they're going to get killed. Well, that's more relevant today than it has been in years. Okay. And it's scary thinking about that. And No Fences, which is another group that we belong to, we talk about how do we knock down these fences of fear and anxiety. And Ernest has got a lot to say about this because he's been wanting to talk here for a minute. So
yeah, I can relate to this. I enjoy these books, and I do a lot of work with kids. Anybody who's seen me on any of my other shows, you know. But I grew up in Chicago, Illinois, and the projects on the west side, you know, with gangs. I could name off 4 or 5 different gangs, but that's not important to name of. As much as I had to be hyper-vigilant, I had to be very aware of what was going on around me all the time. Like Mike said, I knew where every garbage can was, where cars were, where gangways were, like where I could get through the houses just in case. I had to make that move. And as for, he said something about grouping together like the Lions. We used to go a mile from the house to a swimming pool at Union Park, and we had to walk through different projects, okay? So we'd get our little group, and we'd have to have 12 or 13 of us so we could get through them projects without somebody trying to mess with us. So, it formed like territory, which, has gotten even worse with the drugs and stuff. They try to claim territories, but, I've also read a book called No Children Live Here, and the people that wrote it went to the same grammar school I went to. And when she got older, she wrote a book. And it talks about how directly in the neighborhood I grew up in, and not just that neighborhood, but other neighborhoods, that the children, they're seeing symptoms of teenagers, 12, 13, 14 years old, and even younger, and they have the same symptoms as a combat veteran has for PTSD. That's post-traumatic stress syndrome. That the kids have been stressed out and seen so many murders and so much stuff, and babies getting killed, and all that they have PTSD at the age of 12 or 13 years old. And I was talking to somebody, because I do a lot of work with kids. I've been asking kids for that. I started about 15 years ago. And kids do a lot of the stuff they do because they don't think they're going to live to be 20. So
Yeah.
they try and squat. And you know, I have 37 grandchildren. So I'm not guessing at this. But I have to be hyper vigilant even with them because I can't buy no Superman suits for them for Christmas. And I ain't buying bulletproof vests. But, you know, we just had a shooting in Kalamazoo. A young man got his brains blew out literally, you know, over nothing basically. And it's becoming, even in smaller cities, where you have to pay attention.
Well, the big concern that we have, and our job or our goal, our mission statement in the future is to help knock down these fences.
Right.
To reduce this
Right.
concern and this violence that's going on and the gang mentality. And I don't know how to do that. I've got ideas and I'd like to help, but we need to have people come on and talk about it. And it's talked about all the time. The police talk about it, the communities talk about it, but it doesn't seem to be changing anything.
Right.
And I don't know where we're going, and I may be wrong. And I'm more than willing to be told on the show that I'm wrong
No.
and that I need to pay more attention to what's going on.
You're not wrong. What I feel needs to be done, and I'm the one out there on the front line with the kids, is I think we need more community participation. That old stuff about being a stool pigeon and a rat, you know, I grew up in that kind of crap, but today in reality, here's what happens in our neighborhood is if Mike's house get robbed, I don't know nothing. When the police come, I ain't see nobody, I don't know nothing, I don't know what time they came, I don't know nothing. But a week later, when they break in my house, I want Mike and everybody on the block to tell the police everything.
Yep.
Okay? So if we don't take care of our own neighborhoods and our own children, then we create as much of the problem. You know, if you're not part of the solution, you're part of the problem.
Yeah.
We have one problem on our street, and I want to let Mike talk again. We have people that like speeding down our street. Well, I drove 4 communities away where there's some better houses and better homes, and it's mixed, it's not just whites, I'm not saying that. And they have these signs say, drive like your children live here. And almost everybody got one in their front yard. And everybody drives slow through there. And it's just these signs sitting out there that say, drive like your children live here. So that is simple as putting up a sign and saying this is a guarded neighborhood, you know, that we will call. We will protect ourselves and our children. We need to do more of that. When I was growing up in Chicago, that's how it worked. You know, the seniors sat on the porch at night. It was before air conditioning and all of that. And it was safe because every other porch had a set of adults on there that would help you. Now the adults go in and hide, okay? And I don't want it to get like Chicago. I've had 12, 14 adults in Chicago. My brother is 6'6", 400 pounds, and says that by 8 o'clock he's in the house.
And that's a shame. That shouldn't have to be. And it bothers me as a person that it didn't used to be like that.
No, it didn't.
And it's got to that stage. And I go back to what I do, and I hate to say this, I don't hate to say this at all because it's true.
Mm-hmm.
It gets down to parenting.
It does.
And parenting, and the new parents today, they were the young children of your day who started this.
Right.
And it all started probably about the 60s
Mm-hmm.
when people felt their freedom. And, you know, we talk about what happened in the 60s with the flower power and all that kind of stuff.
But there's also another consequence there that a lot of us feel. You grew up poor. I grew up poor. My family had money, but they made us work. In the 60s, they came out with the welfare system.
Yeah.
And a lot of fathers had to leave a home for the wife and children to get money to survive. And if you look at statistics of the problems we have with gangs, with young women getting pregnant, with rape, with robberies, you'll find out that I'll give you a wild number, but over 85% is different numbers for the rape and different numbers for the stealing and going to prison. But the average is about 82 to 87% of those people grew up in fatherless homes.
Yeah. And I grew up in a fatherless home.
I did too.
And I had my trouble, but I'm from a small little farm community. So everybody knew everybody, and you got jerked by the neck.
Right.
Every time you did something wrong, they took you home to your mom, and you got your
You're behind.
got your behind whipped.
I ain't
big
afraid
time.
to say that, you know.
So what we're just talking about here is a chapter I wrote in the book that did have a lot to do with growing up and not understanding that it doesn't have to be the way that your parents taught you.
Right.
And moms said, you know, come home quick by dark, because moms worry. Moms worry about your safety, they worry about your health, they worry if you're gonna grow up.
Let me see this one second.
So
Keep going.
when your mom starts teaching you that, if you don't have, like Ernest said, a fatherless home in a lot of cases, so the only role model you have in the home is the mother, and she's gonna protect you the best way she can, and that's to get you home by dark. No more of this coming home when the streetlights come on, because that doesn't work anymore.
And in response to what he just said, it's in a book. It's a quote in this book by Frederick Douglass to show how old it is. It says, it's easier to build strong children than it is to repair broken men. And that's kind of what we're reaching out at now. Can we reach out to our children? When people my age, most people my age, we have a sense of growing up in an environment where there was respect. Like Mike said, if I went down the street and done something, in fact, short, quick story, I go 2 blocks away and I'm cussing and acting a fool. I'm about 12, 13 years old, acting a real fool. So I figure I'm far enough away from home, so, okay? But my grandmother went to church, large church, and the churches back then used to congregate and talk to each other. And I get home, and my grandmother said, well, I heard you were down by Mr. Johnson's house and you was cussing and acting up. No, Grandma, that wasn't me. She said, but boy, are you sure it wasn't you? I said, yeah, you might want to call her back and ask her what it was. She said, okay. She waited about 5 minutes. She called me back. She said, I'm going to ask you this one more time. What you down there doing? I said, no, Grandma, it wasn't me. She said, well, the lady that called me has been my friend for over 20 years. We go to church together. So she told me you had on blue shirt and some blue jeans and a hat with a red thing in the middle of it. And you telling me that wasn't you? Because Miss Johnson only got one thing to do in her life, is to make up a lie about you. So I got it. But I said all that to say this. People, them same people who would tell on you would watch me. If somebody was jumping on me and attacking me, they would come down off their porch and save you, just like they would come down off their porch and discipline you.
But would they today?
No.
That's where we're at today. What happened between then and now? And like you said, and I started talking about it in the early 60s, when I remember the flower power was out, the hippies and everything else, because I was part of that movement at the time. And what somebody said was, we got a whole bunch of freedoms. We've always had them, but never experienced them.
Right.
All of a sudden, we could experience all these freedoms and put them to test, and nobody knew how to handle them.
Yep.
You got so much freedom, you don't know what to do with it, so you go crazy, you do stupid things. And that's what happened. And it grew from there and grew from there, and people got disrespectful, and parents were told they can't spank their children.
Well, I mentioned the welfare system earlier. I truly believe, and I've talked to a lot of parents about this, that a lot of the problem was babies being raised by babies that was raised by babies. When I was growing up, my grandmother was 50, 60 years old. Now we got grandmamas, great-grandmamas at 36, okay? And they don't know how to put the morals in because they never were taught them. And I'm not just trying to badmouth anybody, talk about it. I have a granddaughter that has a 3-year-old. She had it at 15. Her mother got pregnant at 14. Her grandmother, my ex, got pregnant at 13. Their great-grandmother got pregnant at 14. The great-great-grandmother, who's passed away now, got pregnant at 14. So the great-great-grandmother got pregnant at 14, but she had a husband, and they raised a bunch of kids down in Mississippi.
We got about a minute left.
The other ones, they all got different daddies, and I think that's a problem, babies being raised by babies.
And we get to this environment thing, what we started the show on, is that the environments are dangerous today, in a lot of cases, and how do we get our environment back? Okay. How do we reclaim our neighborhood? And we've got a program we're trying to work on through No Fences and with some other people on how to reclaim your neighborhood a little bit at a time.
Right.
It's not going to happen overnight. It didn't get this way overnight.
Right, so we can't change it.
It's not going to change overnight. And we need to think about, what can we do? We're looking for help. If anybody wants to come on the show and talk to us or give us some advice, we're more than willing to sit down and listen to you. And with that, we're going to say goodbye for this show. We'll be back in a few minutes with number 2.